the Dawgs Podcast with your hosts, Blake Reneker, Justin Charles, and Josh All.
What's up, Browns fans? Welcome into another episode of the Dawgs Podcast presented by Omaha Steaks. Josh All alone with you here, and what I'm going to be doing on this episode is going to be the first of a series of episodes that I've been wanting to do. I had this idea in mind as the season progressed, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do this as soon as the season's over. And it's really important, honestly, that I do these videos between now and when free agency opens up in March. What I'm going to do, this series is going to be called State of the Browns, and I'm going to go position group by position group. I'm going to look at each player at each position group and kind of break down their 2023 season, the stats, kind of some takeaways from their play on the field, what they did well, what they can improve on, those sorts of things. And I want to look at their contract situations heading into 2024 and beyond. So we kind of know after each episode, after each position group, who are the guys that the Browns are rolling into 2024 with for sure? Who are the guys who could be cut candidates, could be trade candidates, may or may not necessarily be with the Browns in 24, and then which guys are free agents and either need to be re-signed or they will be elsewhere in 2024. So I'm going to do all that for each of the position groups, and we'll be releasing these videos periodically, like I said, between now and when free agency opens up, because that's when Andrew Berry is going to get to work, fill in this roster to patch those pieces that we lost in free agency and make any trades and moves that he needs to do. So appreciate you guys tuning in. I mean, what better thing can we be doing than talking Cleveland Browns football in February? I guess January is when I'm recording this. So anyway, it doesn't matter. I know that the Browns are out of the playoffs, and that sucks. And we talk all the time, though, about how at the end of the season, every year, there's only one fan base, one team that walks away completely happy. And, for everybody else, it's, okay, let's take what just happened this past season and what can we build on and what can we move forward with? And, what are the things we need to fix? What are the things we can lean on? All that sort of stuff. And the offseason is one of my favorite times. Now, don't get me wrong. I love football. I love watching football. It's so much fun. There is not much I look forward to more than a Sunday afternoon, kicking up on the couch, turning on the Browns, just watching the game. We talk about the Browns all season. We're a year-round podcast, constantly following the news cycle on social media and just everything. There's a lot that goes in to what we do at the Dawgs Podcast, and the off-season is fun. It really is, because there's so much speculation and projection that we get to do, and it's fun. We get to do all these things, look at the stats and all that, and then when the season rolls around, that's when we really just get to sit back and talk about what is actually happening. We can reference back to the offseason and say, okay, these are the things we talked about, these are the things we got right, and these are the things that we were off on. And, I know that's just kind of the sports talk industry in general, but that, just to give you a little insight into the way my mind works, and I don't know why I'm rambling too much, because we need to get into this first position group that I want to talk about. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the cornerbacks. And before I do, I got this, if you're listening on audio, I'm holding up a bag of Danger Coffee. If you guys have been listening recently, you probably heard the ad reads. We got a new sponsorship with Danger Coffee. I've been looking for a coffee sponsor to promote with you guys because, again, we don't want to promote any sponsors that, we don't enjoy their products. We don't think you would enjoy their products because, one, I mean, this is where we're kind of staking our name on, hey, try some Danger Coffee. It's really good. And then if it's garbage, well, that looks bad for us. And obviously sponsorships help us financially support the show, but it doesn't benefit us in any way if we don't promote products that we think will benefit you. So if you're a coffee drinker, just real quick, I mean, this stuff, it's really good. I've been drinking this stuff every morning since we started the sponsorship. I made sure that I got my samples in and I tried it before I even started promoting it, because I don't want you guys drinking something that I haven't even tested before. So, it just says remineralized, mold-free, lab-tested. I didn't know that 45% of the world's coffee beans contain mold toxins. So what I've been reading, I immediately started doing some research on that stuff. And, most of what I read said you probably don't need to be too worried about it. The amounts of, the mold toxins on most coffee is not probably anything to be concerned about. But like I said in the ad read, why even take the chance? This stuff is lab tested, guaranteed mold-free. So you know that you're drinking delicious coffee and it's safe. All right, well, now that I'm done with that baked-in ad read, you guys like that? Like how I kind of swung that in there? Let's talk about these cornerbacks. All right, so state of the Browns at the cornerback position. Now, the secondary took a huge leap this year under Jim Schwartz, and we've talked a lot about how night and day the defense was, whether they were at home or on the road. At home, this defense was, at the beginning of the season, everybody talked about, historically elite defense and all this stuff. Well, over the course of the season overall, we found out that's not necessarily the case. But at home, they kind of were historically great. What they were able to accomplish at home, and again, I just don't understand how it can be that big of a difference from home and on the road. But it is, whatever, that's what happened. At home, they were freaking good, man. They were awesome. On the road, not so much. But overall, they were good enough at home that they were still the top defense in the league. With how bad they were on the road, that tells you just how good they were at home, because the home numbers were able to pull the entire defense with those piss poor road numbers still up into the number one spot. So that's impressive. And these cornerbacks in the secondary were a pivotal part of that. So I want to talk about these guys I'll talk about them in order of age and contracts and that kind of stuff. So that means, of course, we're kicking things off with the Pro Bowler Denzel Ward. Denzel Ward, 5'11", 190 pounds, and I'm gonna shout out their hometowns, Macedonia, Ohio. He played at Ohio State. Go Bucks! A 4th overall pick in 2018. He will turn 27 years old in April, and this in 2023 was his 6th season in the NFL. So now we'll dive into just some stats on Denzel Ward. All right, so here in 2023, Denzel Ward played 13 games. He had 34 tackles. He had 1 tackle for loss. He had 1 forced fumble, 11 passes defensed, and he had 2 interceptions and, 20 total interception yards. So Denzel Ward, one of the things with Denzel Ward, and I'll just kind of spitball here a minute. We talk, I don't know, we necessarily talk too much, but there's a lot of talk amongst Browns fans about Denzel Ward, or the warden, or sometimes the hospital warden, or hospital ward. He unfortunately has this reputation for not playing full seasons, which is fair. He never has. Missing a ton of games, which is a little less fair because he doesn't miss a ton. Like I said, this year, 13 games played means he missed. We'll just kind of go on a 16-game basis here, because that Week 18 Bengals game does not count as a game missed for any of the starters. So really, he only missed 3 games this season. Last year, he missed 3 games. The year before that, he missed 2 games. The year before that, 4, 4, and 3. So it looks like 4 games is the most he's ever missed in a season in his career. So while one thing that I've said before on the show, and I'll say it again here because I still believe it, when Denzel Ward misses a game, 1 game, it feels like more than a game, because his impact on the defense in the secondary is so great that when a guy like Denzel Ward misses a game, it really does feel like he's missed multiple. I don't know how else to describe that other than his level of play is it is that high. He is that good of a cornerback in the NFL that when he's not out there, you feel it. You definitely feel the pain. What's up, Browns fans in Ohio? If you haven't signed up for Caesars Sportsbook yet, now is the perfect time to do so with the NFL playoffs underway. New customers will get their first bet on Caesars up to $1,000 when signing up with our promo code DAWGS1000. That means if your first bet loses, you will get your full wager returned as a bonus bet up to $1,000. Caesars offers daily profit boosts as well as Caesars rewards credits on every wager, which can be redeemed for bonuses, sports tickets, and other VIP experiences. If you're ready to join Caesar Sportsbook, go download the app and register with our promo code DAWGS1000 to make sure your first bet is covered. Offer is only available for new customers who are 21 and older and physically present in Ohio. Please gamble responsibly. If you or a loved one has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Check the episode description for the full terms of the offer to see if you can qualify. So in terms of his stats, his tackles this year they were the lowest tackle total of his entire career. He had 53 last year, which was tied for his highest with his rookie season, dropped down to 34 this year. Interception mark, just going through his career, it's been 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2. So pretty much on par with his annual interception rate. Passes defensed, his high in his career was 18, 10, 15, 11 this year. So 11, he's done that 3 times. That seems pretty standard. So I guess basically what I'm saying by that is Denzel Ward had a Denzel Ward season. He missed a couple games. Aside from the low number of tackles, he picked off a couple passes, broke up quite a few passes. He doesn't get targeted a lot. That's another thing to keep in mind with Denzel Ward is, quarterbacks, offensive coordinators, they're not scheming plays to make sure that they're trying to target receivers in the vicinity of Denzel Ward. It's just, that's the way it is. And that's also what makes him such a valuable player in the secondary. So if we go over and look at, I did have one stat note here. With the cornerbacks, I know a lot of you probably going to be screaming, especially when we get to a guy like Greg Newsome, missed tackles. Okay, I know. The missed tackles were super disappointing this year because I was really hoping, and I'm sure we all were, with Jim Schwartz, this defense got to the level of nasty, of dog, of gritty, get in your face, hit you hard, and get up and dance about it level that we've been wanting the Browns defense to be at forever. And they got there. The missed tackles still hung around this year, though. So Denzel Ward had 8 missed tackles. He played 617 snaps in those 13 games. So I looked at the PFF numbers, and this is everything I talk about here with these guys is going to be a minimum of 500 snaps, and that came out to 88 qualifying cornerbacks in the NFL this season. Denzel Ward had a 69.6 defense grade. That was 29th out of 88. He had a 69.8 coverage grade, 34th out of 88. He had a 77.0 passer rating when he was targeted. That was 19th best. To give you some benchmarks in that category, because that's a big deal. What is the quarterback's passer rating whenever they're targeting you on average over the course of the year? So, like I just said, Denzel Ward was at 77. Sauce Gardner, who we all think is a pretty damn good cornerback for the Jets, he was at 76.5. And then fellow Brown Greg Newsome was at 76.4. So just to kind of give you an idea of some of the names there with him, Denzel Ward was targeted 66 times, allowed 34 catches for 467 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, here was his best stat. That the catches and targets, 51.5% completion rate when targeted. That was 7th best, 7th lowest in the NFL among these 88 qualifying cornerbacks. His 467 yards allowed, that was 31st lowest. The Browns' big 3 cornerback trio here, these guys were all together on that list. So you had Greg Newsome, we'll get to him, but he had 455 yards allowed. That was 29th. Martin Emerson was at 466. That was 30th. And then here's Denzel Ward at 467, 31st. So they're kind of all back to back to back. Denzel Ward gave up 272 yards after the catch. So that was 58% of the total yards he allowed came after the catch. So the way I was looking at that stat, and I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you guys here, and you know if you've watched enough Dawgs podcasts, especially my solo shows, you know I do a lot of stats. And a lot of it is what do the stats tell you. So when I'm looking at YAC, yards after catch, and total yards. So Denzel Ward gave up 467 total yards on the season. 272 of those came up after the catch. So what I'm looking at with that number is I want that number to be low. I want the percent total of the total yards that is YAC to be low, because that means if a guy's getting a lot of YAC on you, it means he's catching the ball and then he's doing something with it. you want your yak total given up to be low if you're a defender, because it probably means you're missing a tackle, means maybe you're out of position, you weren't in position to, defend the pass, to make a tackle right at the catch point. So Denzel Ward's yak, it was 58% of his total. That was the 19th most among these 88 qualifying cornerbacks. So that, I wasn't really thrilled with that number. 13.8 yards per catch. That was 22nd out of 88. He had 3 penalties on the season. And just to give you guys an idea of his snap breakdown, because this kind of plays into what position these guys are normally at on the field. Denzel Ward played 565 of his snaps on the outside. He played just 22 snaps total the entire season, only 22 in the free safety position and just 28 snaps in the box. So he was primarily and predominantly an outside cornerback based on his snap breakdown. So again, overall, good season for Denzel Ward, made the Pro Bowl. That's pretty cool. How many times has he made the Pro Bowl? Let me just kind of switch over here and look. That would be his 3rd Pro Bowl this year. He made it his rookie year in 2018, back in 2021, and now again in 2023. So good for Denzel Ward. Always happy to see Cleveland Browns making the Pro Bowl and getting some recognition and honors. All right, so now let's look at the contract situation for Denzel Ward with the Cleveland Browns. Heading into 2024, Denzel Ward has a cap hit of $23.5 million. So what I like to do on overthecap.com, pull up these players' contracts, then on the side you get the option to change the numbers based on whether they're cut or traded before or after June 1st. And the way I don't understand contracts the way that GMs and these people that run this website obviously do, but I know what to make of the numbers when they pop up. So here's the information as it's showing to me on the screen. Pre-June 1st, Denzel Ward ain't going nowhere. Denzel Ward has a dead cap hit pre-June 1st of $42 million. It means the Browns, if the Browns were to cut him, and this isn't going to happen, I'm just giving you an example, but if the Browns cut him before June 1st, they essentially lose $18.5 million against the cap. That just doesn't make any sense. So that's not going to happen. But whenever you go to post June 1st on the cut, now again, Denzel Ward is not a player that's going to get cut. So, you know what? Actually, since that's the case, I'm not even going to look at that. Let's look at post, because they can't trade him. They cannot trade him before June 1st. Well, I take that back. I guess they kind of could. His dead cap on a trade would be $26.7 million, meaning they would lose $3.2 million against the cap if they did it before June 1st. But if they trade him after June 1st, and I'm not saying they're going to, but this is really interesting. So again, cap number 23.5. His dead cap, if he's traded post June 1st, is only $7.7 million. The Browns could, and we talk about the cap situation, the contracts, all this stuff. Where are they going to get the money? I love Denzel Ward. I doubt this happens. I don't think he's going anywhere. I would be shocked if he did. But the Browns could trade him post June 1st and save $15.8 million to the cap. So that's just something to, just kind of keep in mind when we're looking at the player personnel moves as the offseason unfolds, the draft, and, the summer and the camps and everything roll around. So, again, I'm not predicting that's going to happen. I'm just saying those are the numbers that are showing on Over the Cap. And whenever I first looked at the dead cap, I said, he's not going anywhere. The Browns can't move him. We're locked into him. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. But anyway, like I said, don't think anything's going to happen. Denzel Ward, unless something crazy goes down, he will be your leading cornerback for the Cleveland Browns in 2024. This episode is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. Browns fans, the Super Bowl is decided, and the rat turds are not going to be there. It's the Chiefs taking on the San Francisco 49ers on February 11th. But before the big game, make sure you guys get your orders in at Omaha Steaks. Don't throw your Super Bowl parties or, even your Valentine's Day meals, because let's face it, that's coming up too, guys, real fast. Do not host these events without the best meats and foods available from Omaha Steaks. Right now, when you order at omahasteaks.com/dogs, DAWGS, you will get 4 free pork chops and 4 free boneless chicken breasts with your order. That's 8 free additional items when you place your order right now at omahasteaks.com/dogs. I've been saying it forever. Best steaks, best burgers, steak burgers. Oh my gosh. The best chicken, the best ready-to-eat meals, the desserts for Valentine's Day. I'm telling you, make sure you add the caramel apple tartlets to your order. She's going to love them. So go now, get it in time for all the big things happening coming up here in February. omahasteaks.com/dogs. Gregory Newsome II. Let's talk about Greg Newsome, 6'1", 190. Shout out Chicago, Illinois, hometown. He played his college ball at Northwestern, here in the Big Ten with the Ohio State Buckeyes. He was the 26th overall pick in the first round in 2021 by the Browns. He is 23 years old. He will turn 24 this spring, so he's still a pretty young guy. This was just his 3rd season in the league that he completed. So there's a lot of career left for a guy like Greg Newsome. Now, we talked about the missed tackles for Denzel Ward. Greg Newsome had 10 missed tackles over the course of 2023. But overall, his stats, Greg Ward had the most tackles of his career so far. Rookie year, 37. Last year, 42. This year, he had 49. He had 4 tackles for loss, which before this season, he had 0 to his career. So that was nice to see him getting more involved in the backfield. He had a half a sack, which he had a half a sack last season. He had his first 2 ever interceptions. His first 2 seasons of his career, no picks for Greg Newsome. He had 2 this season and 1 for a touchdown. We all remember against the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson. One of our plays of the year nominees for the Mad Dog Awards this year. Just a great play. Awesome and a fun highlight to watch over and over because screw Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Gosh, I hate the Ravens so much. Anyway, okay, now let's let's move into some of these PFF numbers for Greg Newsome. So he had a 69.6 defense grade. That's 29th out of the 88 cornerbacks. 74.6 coverage. That's 23rd. He had a 76.4 passer rating when targeted. That was 17th. He was targeted 67 times, allowed 39 catches for 455 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he had a 58.2% completion percentage against him, which was 30th. If you remember, Denzel Ward had, I believe it was, he was 7th, right? Yep, 7th best in the NFL among these cornerbacks. So Greg Newsome, honestly, the percentages weren't that big. 51.5 for Denzel, and then 58.2 for Greg. So his 291 yak yards, that was 62.4% of the total. That put him at 74th out of the 88 cornerbacks. Now, I was talking about the yak stuff, in the last segment with Denzel Ward. Not great for Greg Newsome. Really not great. Would love to see that number come down a lot. His yards per reception, 11.7. That put him at 39th out of 88. He had 5 penalties on the season. And his snap breakdown, 276 snaps outside, 397 in the slot, 83 in the box. So Denzel Ward was very much utilized both inside and in the slot. He was definitely in the box a whole lot more than Denzel Ward. But where Denzel Ward was predominantly that outside cornerback at all times for the most part, Greg Newsome was very much moving back and forth in the slot, outside, and so that was more his role in 2023. So this is where things with Greg Newsome get a little interesting. The Browns, again, Andrew Berry is a genius when it comes to the cap situation and the contracts and everything that he knows how to finagle these things. He knows how to do what he's doing very well. There's going to be a lot of restructures and things of that nature, but a guy like Greg Newsome, when the Browns, and we'll get into Martin Emerson next, but when the Browns have Denzel Ward and a guy like Martin Emerson in the cornerback room, and quite frankly, an up-and-coming guy like Cam Mitchell, who looked decent this year. I won't say he looked great or good, but decent. It looked like he can be serviceable, looks like he can play some ball at the NFL level. So the Browns have to make a decision here with Greg Newsome because he's entering the fourth year and technically final year of his rookie contract. Since he was a first-round pick, the Browns have the option to pick up a fifth year on Greg Newsome. So if they decide to exercise Greg Newsome's fifth-year option, and I'm kind of just learning the nitty-gritty details of all this stuff too. So if anything I'm saying here is wrong, or for a fact, you're listening, you're like, I know for a fact he's got that wrong, drop in the comments, just let me know. I don't mind learning what I'm doing wrong here if I am. But what OTC is telling me about Greg Newsome, if the Browns exercise his fifth-year option, they will owe him about $12.2 million against the cap next year in 2025. So that would be his fifth year. And then what it says, what it says is the fifth year becomes fully guaranteed, and any base salary in the player's fourth year that was not fully guaranteed will become fully guaranteed. So I'm trying to see here. It looks, so all $4 million that Greg Newsome is owed against the cap this year, if they pick up his fifth-year option, that all $4 million of that becomes guaranteed. So here's the interesting thing with Greg Newsome and his situation. The Browns could trade Greg Newsome. Now, again, I'm not saying they're going to. None of this stuff is saying they're going to do this or that. I'm just telling you what could happen. If the Browns were to decide to trade Greg Newsome, they would essentially save $2.4 million against the cap this year. And obviously, they would not be taking on that $12.2 million against the cap next year. So this will be interesting to see how it unfolds, because as soon as the Browns come out and announce they've exercised a fifth-year option on Greg Newsome, he's locked in for this year, he's locked in for next year. Those contract numbers are fully guaranteed, and like I said, it would be $4 million this year and $12.2 against the cap next year. Now, what the Browns can do and may do is explore trade options for Greg Newsome, because until they pick up that fifth-year option, they can trade him to save $2.4 million against the cap. So we will see what happens with Greg Newsome. Obviously, I like Greg Newsome. I know the end of the season wasn't great. His performance in the wild card game was not great. It sucked, honestly, but overall, he had a good year. He had a really good year. He has continued to develop and grow and get better each season so far. It's what you want to see with these guys, obviously, especially your first-round picks. He's kind of lived up to that billing. I believe not every guy you select in the first round is going to be an all-pro, but can he be a very good starter? That's really the baseline you're looking for. And Greg Newsome is a very good starter. He is, but he will be a guy to watch what the Browns decide to do here in the offseason before. And I just looked up, they have until May 2nd. So they get to go through the draft. They get to see how things unfold in free agency and in April when the draft takes place before they have to decide if they're going to pick up the fifth-year option on Greg Newsome. So that date is May 2nd. We will be talking more about Greg Newsome as the offseason goes and as we get closer to that May 2nd deadline until, if they come out and announce in a month that, hey, we're exercising the fifth-year option, then we don't have to worry about it. We know what the deal is. But until that happens, we're going to have to speculate and try to see what the Browns are leaning toward doing with Newsome. All right, now we'll move into the biggest Pro Bowl snub this year, Martin Emerson Jr., 6'2", 201 pounds, big body cornerback. Shout out to Pensacola, Florida, hometown, played at Mississippi State in college. He was Andrew Berry's third-round pick in 2022, 68th overall. What a slam dunk third-round pick Martin Emerson has turned out to be and continues to turn out to be. He's 23 years old. He will turn 24 in September. And this was his second year in the NFL. Start with the bad stat first, like I did with Greg Newsome. And just like Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson had 10 missed tackles this season. We'll talk more about missed tackles throughout the offseason, I'm sure. But anyway, his stats for the season, 59 tackles, just 4 fewer than he had last year as a rookie. He didn't have any sacks. He had 1 sack last year. He had a tackle for loss. But he did lead the team with 4 interceptions. He had the most interceptions on the Browns in 2023. He played every game. He played 16 games. Obviously didn't play in that last one. Don't need him out there against the Bengals in a meaningless week. So 4 picks and 14 passes defense. He had 15 last season. Martin Emerson's dog, and we love Martin Emerson on the show. Blake's been texting him and trying to get him on the show for like 2 seasons now. Hasn't worked out, but at least we're having conversations with him. So moving over to PFF, Martin Emerson had a 65.8 defensive grade. That was 45 out of 88. Cornerbacks, 66.5 coverage grade. That was 44th. None of these guys are in the top 5 or top 10 of these PFF grades, but again, we take PFF grades with a grain of salt. 45.3 passer rating. This is the number that matters the most, at least to me. 45.3 passer rating when targeted. That was not top 10, not top 5. That was second best in the entire NFL among cornerbacks. Martin Emerson was awesome this season. We talked about why he should have been a Pro Bowler. To me, this number right here should have been the leading argument as to why Martin Emerson should have been a Pro Bowler, followed by the stat that he gave up precisely 0 touchdowns this season. So you've got, the Browns have the cornerback that had the second lowest passer rating when targeted, and he gave up no touchdowns on the whole season. Martin Emerson is awesome, and Martin Emerson could be a reason why the Browns consider trading a guy like Greg Newsome. So we'll see what happens with that situation, but man, Martin Emerson, you're awesome. You have come in here and just wowed everybody. He was targeted 70 times, allowed just 33 catches for 466 yards, and like I said, 0 touchdowns. And while the other 2 cornerbacks, you look at Greg Newsome, had a 58.2 completion percentage against him. That was 30th best in the league. Martin Emerson, 47.1% completion, number 2 in the league in that stat as well. 466 yards given up was the 30th lowest. So, like I said, these guys all kind of gave up roughly the same amount of yards on the year between them. He had 133 yak yards. And remember what I was saying about Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome? Like, I wish their percentage, the yak out of the total, would be lower. Martin Emerson's was 28.5%, 19th lowest among all cornerbacks. So much better than the other 2 guys, in that regard, meaning not a lot of receivers catching the ball and doing anything after the catch when Martin Emerson is in coverage. Yards per reception, 14.1. That was 71st out of 88. So pretty high yards per reception. But again, the low yak percentage was key for me on that one. Guys might be catching the ball deep on him, but they're not going anywhere after the catch, typically. 9 penalties. So this was a category that was a knock on Emerson. There were only 6 cornerbacks in the NFL that had more penalties than Martin Emerson. So he was penalized a lot. We talked about how a lot of those penalties were kind of bullshit, ticky-tacky penalties. But again, this is the number. That's the number of penalties that were issued against him, unfortunately. So his snap breakdown, 791 snaps on the outside, just 16 in the slot, and only 47 in the box. So Martin Emerson Jr. was predominantly, like Denzel Ward, an outside cornerback in Jim Schwartz's defense here in 2023. Again, Emerson, young guy, going into 2024, he just has a $1.5 million cap hit. So, it's super low for one of the, we could call him one of the elite cornerbacks in the league. I think that he's showing that he's definitely at least touching that. He's coming into that category of cornerback in the NFL. Is he elite already? Maybe not. But you can't argue that he's not at least approaching it, because he is very, very good. Like I just talked about all the numbers and what he was able to do this season. So like I said, 2024, $1.5 million cap. We can look at the pre-June 1st trade. They could save $900,000 by trade. They're not trading Martin Emerson. So Martin Emerson will be a Cleveland Brown in 2024, and I cannot wait to see what this kid is going to do next year, year 2 in Jim Schwartz defense. It's going to be freaking awesome. And finally, we will talk about Cameron Mitchell. He was a rookie this season. He was a 5th-round pick, 142nd overall. 5'11", 191 pounds. Shout out to Chicago, Illinois, another Chicago guy. He played college just like Greg Newsome at Northwestern. Just 22 years old, and he'll turn 23 at the beginning of September. So as far as stats go for Cam Mitchell, He got 3 starts, but he played in 13 out of the 17 games this season. He had a 4-game period where he was on IR. He was gone, and when he was gone and Denzel Ward was gone at the same time, boy, did we feel it in the secondary. And when Cam Mitchell was filling in for injuries this season before he suffered his own injury, I'll tell you what. Now, he's not Martin Emerson. He's not coming out here and blowing anybody out of the water and making fans go, wow, who's that guy? But, he wasn't making you go, who's that guy? Get him off the field. No, he was doing a pretty good, for a 5th-round pick, a rookie, I thought he played very well. I thought he held his own, and I thought he showed some very good promise and just another great cornerback selection by Andrew Berry in the NFL draft. So for the year, 18 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. He did have a sack, 2 passes defensed, and 0 interceptions. With a very, very, very close, near pick 6 that we all remember he dropped, and it was like, come on, kid, hold on to the ball. But, again, 5th-round rookie, still thought he did pretty good overall. So I'm not going to dive too deep into Cameron Mitchell. Like I said, 3 starts. He played in all 13 games, but he didn't get a whole lot of action because the Browns have 3 absolutely awesome cornerbacks in front of him. But he did play 277 total snaps. His defense grade on PFF, 58.1. His coverage was a 60. He did have 6 missed tackles on the season. He was targeted 29 times, allowed 22 receptions. So his reception percentage was a 75.9, which is super high. Gave up 201 yards, 9.1 yards a catch. Gave up 2 touchdowns, which on such limited targets, you would hope that there'd be none. But again, 5th-round rookie, so, we'll give the kid a pass. 2 touchdowns, and he had 117.2 passer rating against him. So again, not the high-level numbers, obviously, the other 3 guys I mentioned, but still, this is a guy who, I'll pull up his contract here, but contract doesn't really matter for these young guys. He's not even $1 million against the cap, in $999,000 in 2024. So Cameron Mitchell will be on the Browns' cornerback depth chart in 2024. So just some quick mentions here. The Browns did sign Vincent Gray to a reserve future deal here in the offseason. And then other cornerbacks that were on the team in 2023 who are now going to be free agents, Mike Ford and Khalif Halisi, who was an undrafted free agent last year. So we'll see. We'll see if they bring back Ford or Halisi in any capacity for 2024. Andrew Berry is going to be very active filling out the cornerback room because it's an important position. And they put a lot of emphasis on this position in the past, and I have no reason to believe they will not continue to do so. So with all that being said, I really believe the Browns are in a good spot at cornerback. The offseason will be interesting to see how things are handled with contract situations. Denzel Ward's contract is high. There is a possibility that they can move off some of that money. Greg Newsome could be, and like I said, just because I say he could be doesn't mean I'm saying he will be or I think he's going to be. I'm just saying he could be a trade candidate. We'll see what happens there. They have his 5th-year option to consider. Martin Emerson locked and loaded for 2024. Let's get after it again and actually get named to the Pro Bowl this time because he should have been in 23. And, of course, Cam Mitchell. And those 4 guys at the moment are your Cleveland Browns cornerbacks that are on the roster ahead of free agency and the draft. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate you checking out this first State of the Dawgs episode, or State of the Browns episode. And I've got more of these coming. We're going to be talking about safeties and defensive line, and then we're going to move over to the, we'll do linebackers. I'm going to do defense first. Because the defense was just so awesome this year. And most of the injuries we suffered were on the offensive side of the ball. So we'll save that for last. Defense first. We'll go through those position groups, and then we'll move over. We'll hit the O-line, the running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks, all that stuff. So I appreciate everybody watching, tuning in. Please, I didn't say this at the top, but if you're watching this on YouTube, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. Please share this on your social media pages. We would love to get this podcast out in front of as many people as possible. And if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Amazon, wherever you're listening to your podcast, thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you for subscribing and following the show. And last but not least, join thedawgs.com, become an official Dog Pack member, jump in our Discord, and catch our after hours episodes during the off season. They get very wacky, wild, and out of control, and they're pretty much just about whatever you guys want us to talk about. So it's a lot of fun over there on the after hours. So again, until I talk to you guys in the next State of the Browns episode, let's go Browns.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dawgs Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at the Dawgs Podcast. Get your thoughts on the show at thedawgspodcast.com.